Hello and welcome to the Fifth Down Huddle. This is episode 12. We've got a lot to cover. A lot of recent offseason moves, kind of at an unexpected time in the year. You'd expect the bigger moves like this to happen earlier in the season, but with Patrick Mahomes signing a 10-year deal, 12-year deal in total, but a 10-year extension, and Cam Newton recently signed to the Patriots, we've got a lot to talk about. But first off, I'm going to go ahead and tell you to go ahead and follow the Instagram page at Fifth Down Huddle. We post all the biggest news updates, all the biggest rumors, all the biggest reports. We post open questions. We post fantasy tips and fantasy tricks. Everything you can think of football related, we post there. So go check it out. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, know that we do have a Spotify page if that's easier for you. And if you're on Spotify, know that we have a YouTube page, all under that same name, Fifth Down Huddle. But enough talk, let's huddle up. So let's analyze the New England Patriots. It's pretty much a brand new team. The first time we have seen the New England Patriots this type of way without Tom Brady for 2 decades. I mean, granted, in I believe it was 2011 or 2010, we saw the Patriots without Brady. We saw them play a season with Brady on IR, but outside of that, we haven't really seen the Patriots without Tom Brady on the roster. So, let's cover the most recent news, Patriots related. Now, I'm going to back up a second here. The Patriots lost a lot. Alright, they lost the best quarterback of all time. They lost a lot of defensive players, Jamie Collins, Kyle Van Noy, Landon Roberts. They lost a lot of linebackers there. But one thing people have to keep in mind is that the receiving core is going to be better this year. That's one. And number two is that the secondary is still the best secondary in the league. So they still have those two things going for them. The linebacking core this upcoming season is unproven. We don't really know what's going to happen there, how good that's going to be. The defensive line last year wasn't stellar, but it wasn't bad. It was good. It was an average D-line. So it might even improve with Chase Winovich in his second year. We just don't know. But what we do know is that the Patriots have the best secondary in the league and have a promising receiving core going into this next season, along with 2 recently drafted tight ends, one of which I think is going to be very good, Devin Asiasi. I believe he's going to be a great tight end for the New England Patriots. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to be a lot better than what the Patriots have had in recent years. You know, Ben Watson, Matt LaCosse, those types of tight ends just didn't do it for the Patriots in terms of a receiving threat or even a blocking threat. So first off, like I said, let's cover the most recent news. Cam Newton to the Patriots. I have a few points I want to go over here, because I feel like people don't understand just how much of a steal this is. No, I'm not going to go on a tangent about how underrated Cam is and how he's the most disrespected quarterback in the league. No, he got replaced, and the Panthers clearly are done with him. There's a reason for that. The Panthers didn't just not re-sign him just because they were bored with him. It's because they don't believe he has anything left in the tank. They don't believe there's anything left there for them to get. So clearly, and not to mention how many teams passed on signing him, clearly there is something wrong with Cam Newton. We can't ignore that. Clearly Cam Newton is not where he used to be. He might get somewhere back there, but in my eyes, I don't think Cam Newton's ever going to be back to 2015 Cam. Cam started 2 games in 2019. Just 2. He completed just over 56% of his passes, along with no touchdowns and 1 interception, topped off with an average of 6.4 yards per attempt. All of which were lower than that of Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Dwayne Haskins. So, in terms of averages, out of those 2 games that we saw, Cam Newton played worse than Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Dwayne Haskins did all season. Now, granted, Jameis Winston had a worse interception rate, but you get the point. Not to mention, Cam didn't necessarily have a glamorous 2018 season either. So I suppose what I'm trying to say here is this isn't a steal because of the talent that Cam Newton has now. It's a steal because of what Cam Newton might have left in the tank and what Bill Belichick might be able to get out of him. Granted, we may never see 2015 Cam Newton again, the MVP man who made it to the Super Bowl and arguably lost the Super Bowl, but coming even close to that would shatter the expectations of this deal from a financial perspective. You have to realize that unless Cam Newton wins the starting job over second-year quarterback Jarrett Stidham, who the Patriots have shown they trust, he only gets paid under $600,000. Less than a lot of kickers in this league make. So that basically means that if Bill doesn't believe Cam can lead the team after working with him throughout training camp and the preseason, the Patriots don't lose much at all. The Patriots, it's like having another kicker on the roster. They can cut him, obviously, if they don't think he's good enough to even be the backup. But if he is the backup, he costs next to nothing to be the backup. A former MVP quarterback costs next to nothing to be your backup. I think that's pretty good. The deal is basically saying that if Cam Newton is useless, the Patriots don't lose any money. If Cam is good, he gets paid. He doesn't get paid like he's a top-tier quarterback, even if he is top-tier. But he gets paid like, one-year roster quarterback. Not insane, not great, but, he's a starter. So, another thing to look at is Bill Belichick's history taking shots on players that supposedly have nothing left in the tank. Because that's what this is. Pretty much every other team in the NFL believes that Cam Newton doesn't have enough left in the tank for them to take a shot on him. So, Bill Belichick is taking a shot on Cam Newton with the off chance that there's something left in the tank. Bill Belichick has done this time and time again before. We all know it. Let's look at Wes Welker. He was an undrafted wide receiver who had short stints with the Chargers, the Dolphins, and then was welcomed into Foxborough with Bill Belichick, where he would become a Pro Bowl caliber player and arguably the best slot receiver in Patriots history. Bill Belichick is a genius when it comes to taking older players with nowhere to go and paying the bare minimum price to turn that player into a starter. Look towards the 2011 season, when Brady took a hit that knocked him out of the starting role for an entire season, forcing in backup Matt Castle. Castle would lead the team to an 11-5 record. So trust me, if Bill can go on an 11-5 tangent with Castle, he can have an at least 0-500 record with Cam. People are so quick to jump the gun and say Cam has nothing left, which again, like I said in the beginning, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know Cam Newton has this secret magical ability to all of a sudden be good and all of his recent problems go away just because he has a chip on his shoulder. That happens sometimes. But we have also seen that quarterbacks, sometimes just because they say they have something to prove, they don't always prove it. They don't. Look at Josh Rosen. I remember draft night, Josh Rosen gets picked later in the draft. It was by the Cardinals. It was later in the draft than some people expected him to go. But he went to the Cardinals and he said, I'm going to prove to the teams that didn't take me that they should have taken me. And where is Josh Rosen today? Nowhere to be seen. So, like I said, people are quick to jump the gun and say Cam Newton has nothing left, which again could be true. But I think it's fair to say that if Bill Belichick, the best head coach in NFL history, believes in him, we should give him a chance. We should give him a benefit of the doubt and say, you know what, if Belichick thinks there's something left, hell, we're not going to hate on it. We're just going to say, you know what, whatever happens, happens. If I were a Patriots fan, I would be pissed off if Belichick threw, $7 million guaranteed into Cam Newton. In that case, yes, I would be mad. But considering the fact that Bill Belichick only really put in under $1 million guaranteed into Cam Newton, unless he plays well, that's a steal. That's a steal. It's a steal of the century. I mean, come on. This is a former MVP quarterback, and like I said, I'm not gonna rely on that former MVP catchphrase to justify the fact that Cam Newton might have something left, but Bill Belichick believes in him. Bill Belichick's giving him a shot and saying, show me what you got, Cam. Cam has a chip on his shoulder, and he's got something to prove. Now, like I said before, I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction and say that Cam Newton is going to be the starter. He's going to be great. The thing that I'm trying to argue here is that Cam Newton and this deal is not a bad deal. This is a great deal, even if Cam Newton doesn't play well, because it's a low-risk, high-reward deal. So now I'm going to segue into really just taking a look at the entirety of this New England Patriots roster. Let's take a look at what the team will most likely look like going into the 2020 season. Bill Belichick has made some pretty quiet moves this offseason that I believe will be crucial in how the Patriots perform this upcoming season. One of the first and more important moves he made was getting rid of Philip Dorsett. Any Patriots fan who has watched more than 2 games of the Patriots season will know that Philip Dorsett was more of a burden than he was an asset for the team. Dorsett has been with the Pats for 3 seasons and never broke into what many fans were hoping as an untouched first-round talent. He was drafted in the first round, and he never ended up being much. Although I will admit he held his own as a 3rd or 4th receiver on the team, but he didn't fit the Patriots. And here's why. The problems with Dorsett were made clear in the 2019 season. It's hard to see in the stats, but if you watch those game tapes over and over again and keep an eye on Dorsett, you'll see that he lacked awareness as well as discipline within the Patriots system. The reason he never flourished in the system was due to his lack of attention to detail. Or maybe not his lack of attention, but his lack of ability to use that attention on the field, especially for a no-nonsense team like the Patriots. He ran wrong routes, he made brain-dead decisions that left you wondering why he was still on the roster. A prime example of this came at a point last season when Brady was set to pass on a 3rd down against the Chiefs. It's a big game. It's a crucial point. It's 3rd down against the Chiefs. This is a high caliber team. You need to keep your offense needs to move if you want to beat the Chiefs. Your offense needs to score. So a 3rd down obviously is pretty crucial when you're playing the Chiefs. Maybe not so much when you're playing the Broncos or you're playing the Redskins, but when you're playing the Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions, you need your offense to be good. So the Chiefs send all-out pressure, and the Patriots are ready for it. Brady's ready for it. Brady knows a blitz is coming, so he knows he has to get the ball off quick. And despite Dorsett clearly being able to see the blitz, I mean, you watch the game tape, he's looking directly at the blitz. He doesn't bother to expect a quick pass. He didn't. He didn't even look back, which causes the ball to hit his side mid-route. A clear mistake that a 4-year veteran receiver shouldn't make, especially on a team like the Patriots. So to me, getting rid of Dorsett was a good move. Now granted, that was only one example, but there were many. I know the receiving core is nowhere near where it should be. You know, you got N'Keal Harry, who didn't really prove much last year. Granted, he was injured for the majority of the year, kind of came in mid-season to an offense that had been built on the idea that he wasn't there. And, you know, Mohamed Sanu came in the middle of the season, had to learn a super complex offense really quickly. Julian Edelman was pretty much the only guy that was there all year and that was steady, and he had a 1,000-yard season. And outside of that, not a whole ton else. But in the climate of that receiving core, you definitely need to follow the do-your-job atmosphere that the Patriots have spent the last 2 decades building. You can't let poor play slip by when your receiving core is that average. You know, if you have Deion Branch or if you have Randy Moss or Rob Gronkowski, it's okay if they don't follow the route yard to yard. If they go a half yard off, or if they, maybe a yard or 2 off, that's fine because they're great players. They'll make up for it with still being able to beat the defense. But when you're a receiver like Dorsett, or a receiver like N'Keal Harry, or a receiver like Mohamed Sanu learning a new offense on the fly, you need to pay attention to that detail. Especially on an offense that was a revolving door in terms of skill players. You need to follow those details, and Dorsett did not do a good job of that. So the next move, moving to the defense, was re-signing Devin McCourty. Sure, he's getting up there in age, but he and his brother are the leaders of that defense. Bill knows this, and he was ready to sacrifice Collins and Van Noy in order to keep that base intact. Devin McCourty has also been a solid defensive player for the Patriots during his entire tenure there. He has consistently played well and more often than not above average. Not only that, but keeping the brothers together, I believe, was a large factor in why Bill re-signed McCourty. Again, it's a leadership thing. Those 2 brothers are the anchor in that offense, in that defense. They keep that defense grounded. They keep that defense disciplined. They keep that defense going. Now, the next move came with re-signing Matthew Slater. This has been a no-brainer for years with Belichick and Matthew Slater. He's a special teams monster, and we all know Bill Belichick loves special teams. And it's one of the things that kind of shows you why Bill Belichick is so successful, is the fact that he cares so much about the smallest things, like special teams, which a lot of other teams might not stay so focused on special teams. But Bill Belichick, he will sign a player like Matthew Slater specifically so that he can play on special teams and so that he can continue to be that special teams monster. Slater has never filled the role as a wide receiver, as expected, and he has never needed to. He makes himself worthwhile to Bill simply through his special teams contributions. Slater has made play after play after play on special teams that have proven with worth. Not only that, but he is a leader on the team and within the locker room. The next set of moves are all losses, or players Bill was willing to lose. Tom Brady, Van Noy, Shelton, Collins, Dorsett were all players Bill didn't feel were crucial to continuing the dynasty. Now that says a lot. If Bill Belichick believed Tom Brady was crucial in continuing the dynasty, I guarantee Bill Belichick would have paid top dollar for Tom Brady and would have kept him there and would have built a receiving core for Tom Brady. But he didn't. In fact, I'd say that Bill is really the base of the dynasty. He knows that, and he also knows that he can continue to win games without Brady. Was the Brady-Belichick matchup nearly perfect? Yes. I don't think you'll recreate that same level of success with Stidham or Cam Newton, but I do still believe that they will continue to win games and continue to be a playoff threat, no matter which quarterback they have under center. You have to remember, it's an atmosphere that the Patriots live off of. An atmosphere that allows Belichick to bring the most out of players. He gets them to do their job, and that's how he wins games. He doesn't sign, a guy to a $60 million 2-year deal to see him moss players downfield. Granted, he did that in the past, but he didn't play top dollar for him. So my point is that he gets them to do their job. He gets them to do enough. So if every single player on the team is doing their job, you win the game. If you just don't do the small mistakes and you make sure every player you sign is going to be able to get his job done, doesn't have to do a ton extra, just does his job, then you're going to win the game. You're going to win the majority of your games. The hardest part of it all is convincing your players that you can win games. Recently, Jacoby Brissett, I don't know if a lot of you guys remember him. Jacoby Brissett played with the Colts last year for a lot of games. He was a starting quarterback, but he used to play for New England the year that Brady was suspended 4 games. Brissett was the third string quarterback, and Jimmy Garoppolo got injured in I believe it was the second or third game of Brady's suspension. Garoppolo got injured, he hurt his hand, so Jacoby Brissett goes in for the second 2 games. Jacoby Brissett wins one in a shutout game, shows great promise, and then loses the next one in a shutout. So it was kind of like, is Brissett good? Is Brissett bad? But anyways, back to the point. Jacoby Brissett jokingly said that he didn't want to be in New England. One major point and key takeaway from what he said following was that he didn't understand how a team could be so confident going into every game. How a team of players that nobody else wanted could feel like they were better than anyone they faced. And I think that's a real teller as to why the Patriots stand where they are today. Brissett just told you. The Patriots have built an atmosphere that allows those players to go into every game, no matter if you're a N'Keal Harry, no matter if you're a Mohamed Sanu, or if you're a Sony Michel. You believe that going into that game, you have the coaches and you have the teammates to win. They believe that they can win every single game they play. They don't go into a single game thinking, we are going to lose this. They go into every game thinking, we are going to find a way to win. And you look at a team like the Redskins, with Dwayne Haskins at quarterback, or Case Keenum, or whoever they end up having, you know that a lot of those players go into a good chunk of those games thinking, yeah, we're probably going to lose this one. Redskins against the Chiefs, Redskins against the Ravens, you really think they're going into that saying, hey, we're going to win this, we're going to kill those Ravens? No. The defense is going into there just wanting the game to be over before it's even started. And that is a bad atmosphere. a terrible atmosphere, and the Patriots have built a near perfect atmosphere. So overall, back to the Cam Newton signing, back to the biggest, most crucial signing of this new New England Patriots, is a low-risk, high-reward deal in recent NFL years. The best example of one. Bill Belichick seems to have a thing for these types of deals, and looking over the exact numbers, it's obvious that the deal revolves around that saying, low risk, high reward. Low money, high possibility of a good quarterback to take over for Tom Brady. He's not going to be Tom Brady, but he's going to be a solid player if you can get anything of what he has left. Cam Newton, the former NFL MVP, signed a deal that only gave him $550,000 guaranteed. Like I said before, and like I'll say again, there are kickers in this league that make more than that in a single NFL season. So basically, if Cam doesn't show up, whether it's because he gets injured or because he simply doesn't win the starting job, he won't come anywhere close to the over $7 million he could end up with. Cam has to perform in order to make money this upcoming season. But those aren't the only stakes for Cam this season. He hasn't done much of anything noteworthy since his 2015 MVP season, so he is also acting as a prove-it year for the veteran quarterback. Prove-it year for him and a prove-it year for Bill Belichick. It's going to be fun to see what they do. So moving on here, I'm going to move on to, real quick, the Redskins name change. The Redskins, just recently, it was announced that they are going to change their name. They're going to change their logo. They're going to change everything in there. And the Redskins, main point of this is they have been recently heavily pressured to both change their name and their logo. Why is it happening? Mainly, it's the thought that this is derogatory and somewhat offensive to Native Americans. The term Redskins has been used in racist ways in the past, discriminatory ways in the past. Is it necessary? I think it's great that they're changing their name, but the only thing I'm worried about is what they change it to. In the end, an NFL team being named after something to do with Native Americans helps preserve the history of a people that America has seemingly long sought to destroy. So I believe it should be changed to something a bit more specific rather than general. So yeah, it's just a quick take for me. I'm going to talk about it more on the next episode when the name actually drops, but just to fill you in real quick, I believe it should be named something a little more specific, like a certain tribe or a certain name of a tribal leader, something like that, but something to add more specific respect, like maybe a Native American tribe from the Washington area, from the past. Whatever they want to do, I think it should be more specific, and I think they should make something that can truly show respect to Native Americans rather than use something that could be deemed disrespectful to Native Americans. So here, we've got about 8 minutes left. I'm going to go over the Patrick Mahomes 12-year mega deal. Arguably the biggest news in recent NFL, pretty much the biggest move of the offseason. I thought Brady was going to be the biggest move of the offseason, but this is pretty neck and neck with that. The Chiefs and the quarterback reached an agreement on a 10-year contract extension that will keep the MVP quarterback in Kansas City through the 2031 season. It is worth $503 million, $500 million, with $477 million in guaranteed mechanisms, which gives Mahomes the ability to opt out of the contract if the mechanisms are not exercised. Basically meaning it's pretty much guaranteed 2 years forward, every 2 years. So basically, if Cam Newton were to have a career-ending injury right now, he would not get all the money on the contract, but he would get a lot of money. And that's not the biggest concern here. This sets Mahomes up with the title of richest player in NFL history, a title that some say Mahomes does not deserve. Now, I think if there's any quarterback in the league that does deserve it, it is Mahomes. I don't see any other quarterback who deserves it more than Mahomes. I mean, Brady may be in the past, but Brady hasn't shown that kind of singularity within a team that Mahomes has. I got to give Mahomes that over Brady. Without Mahomes, that offense is not where it is. And granted, without Brady, the Patriots offense won't be where it was. But I think you get what I'm trying to say here. Mahomes has a lot of intangibles that have less to do with the team and more with what Mahomes is physically. Brady has more mental intangibles in terms of intelligence, clutchness, those types of things. Mahomes, more physical. Though granted, he is clutch because every playoff game this past playoff run, they were down 10 points in every single playoff game, including the Super Bowl, and won each one. So it shows he's pretty clutch. But obviously, the question I'm going to be answering here is whether or not the Chiefs should have given Mahomes a 10-year deal. What should they have given him a 10-year deal? It's tough to tell. You know, you give a player that much money. We have seen in the past players get that type of money and end up not doing a whole ton since. We have seen that before. So you just want to make sure that Patrick Mahomes is the real deal. And I think they did that. I think that they have enough to say, hey, this is the quarterback of the future, and we're going to do whatever we need to keep this quarterback on our roster. The only problem I see here, two big problems, but the only problem with what I just said, is the fact that we haven't really seen Mahomes without a star-studded roster. And when you're paying a quarterback upwards of $50 million a year, you make it really, really difficult to kind of hold on to that star-studded roster. And they just paid a defensive lineman also top-tier money. I think it's an over $80 million contract for 4 years. So clearly, they're going to be low on money in the future. So players like Travis Kelce, like Tyreek Hill, they're not going to be able to keep everyone on that roster. Now, that's the only scary part for the Chiefs. To me, that's the only scary part, is if you don't have those same types of weapons, if you end up with a receiving core like the Patriots have right now, will Cam Newton still be as explosive? You know, will he? It's hard because we haven't seen him with that type of roster in the NFL. We just haven't. We don't have that type of insight into what Patrick Mahomes would be in that type of situation. But in terms of a front office decision, a 10-year contract is always scary. But it's the question of, okay, if this is what we need to do to keep Mahomes, then this is what we're going to do. It's obvious that they believe that Mahomes is the center of their team. They believe that Mahomes is the anchor in the team that keeps the team grounded, that keeps them on a roll. They believe that without Mahomes, they are not going to make it back to another Super Bowl. But they believe that with Mahomes, even if they have to lose some other pieces, they can make it back to the Super Bowl. Now, another question that kind of goes along with this is, what will be deemed worth it 10 years from now? When we make it to the end of this contract, now granted, I don't think he'll play out the entire contract. I think there will be a point where maybe he goes to another team like Peyton Manning or something like that, because this contract isn't completely guaranteed, meaning that he's not going to be on contract for 10 years specifically. He will be if he continues to play the way he has for the rest of his career, but it's interesting because what will be deemed, worth it? Well, when we look back 12 years from now, in 2031, and say, okay, let's look back on this deal and see if they made the right decision. What will be deemed, yeah, that was worth it. That was worth a 10-year deal. That was worth over $50 to $60 million a year. I think at least 2 Super Bowl wins, not just Super Bowl appearances, at least 2 Super Bowl wins, and 1 more MVP. I think that's worth it. In terms of the quarterback market, I think that's worth it. You look at Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's asking upward of $40 million. $40 million! Dak Prescott, who is yet to go anywhere in the playoffs. Anywhere. Lamar Jackson people are already talking about Lamar Jackson on a deal like that. Lamar Jackson hasn't won a playoff game. He's 0-2 in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has yet to prove anything in the postseason, has yet to prove that he can take them to a Super Bowl. And they're already looking at Lamar Jackson like, hey, when's he going to get his deal? When's he going to get his mega deal? So, from that aspect, Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback I can somewhat, as if I were a manager of a team, a general manager, he is the only quarterback in the league that I could somewhat say, okay, let's give him the money. Or, okay, we can do this. I can say wholeheartedly that I believe in this kid. He has an MVP. He has a Super Bowl. He nearly made a Super Bowl a year ago. If it wasn't, arguably, if the Chiefs won the overtime toss against the Patriots, they could have been in the Super Bowl against the Rams rather than the Patriots. So arguably they were a coin toss away from 2 Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes. So looking at it that way, this is great. This is an amazing deal. Patrick Mahomes has made it to the AFC Championship both years he's started and has won an MVP in the process. He probably could have won the MVP this year had he not been injured. So, I mean, you look at it that way, this is a great deal. A great deal. I don't see anything wrong with it in terms of the current quarterback market. Looking at what Lamar Jackson might get, looking at what Dak Prescott's asking for, I'm sure that even 2-3 years from now, we're going to say that this is a team-friendly deal compared to what quarterbacks 2 to 3 years from now will be getting. So under that aspect, this is a great deal. And Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback in the league that I can wholeheartedly say deserves a contract like this. If someone gave me this type of contract and said, okay, pick any quarterback you think would be even slightly deserving of this, Patrick Mahomes is the only one at this point in time. Patrick Mahomes is it. So I'll end it on that note. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. Again, follow the Instagram page. I post daily. I've started a new series on the Instagram page dropping fantasy tips. And I'll talk about that a little more on YouTube. I'm going to be dropping fantasy videos on YouTube, short 5 to 10 minute videos where I cover a certain player, how I think their fantasy season's going to go out. So listen to that. And I'm also thinking about extending it to the podcast where I kind of have four news episodes and 2 fantasy episodes a month until, of course, the NFL season, in which I would probably focus all 6 on what's going on in the league, but you get the gist. So thank you so much for watching. It really helps to support me if you like and subscribe to the channel, if you like the video, if you follow the Instagram page. If you've made it this far, I'm guessing you enjoyed it. So please do. It helps so much, and I would really, really appreciate it. But above anything else, above subscribing, above liking, come back again. And I'll see you next week on Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Thanks for huddling up.